Well, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Brad, Your Health Reclaimed, where we expose the roots of Lyme and chronic illness so people can finally heal, help people understand those roots so you can restore your health and reclaim your life. Today we've got a guest with us. This is Dr. Meline. He's got a really interesting history and an interesting story. So we were just talking about his background a little bit. He started off in the Air Force, trying to figure out health issues. Then he eventually went to medical school, and we were talking about his book. So we're going to jump right in here. Thanks for joining us, Doc.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, this should be a good, fun, enjoyable conversation.
Absolutely.
So which came first, the book or the medical school?
Medical school.
And how long did it take you to get in and through that?
Through the
medical school?
The medical school. I mean, you got 4 years of medical school. I went to a 4-year residency, so you're 8 years through all of that.
Well, you say something about your education that I think it's really important for everybody to understand and know, because I talk about it all the time. What was your take on your education in physiology in medical school?
I thought that our education was pretty weak in physiology, and especially in nutrition and things like that. There's a lot of stuff that they had to cover, and there's just not enough time to cover those subjects in detail, so that left us wanting. For me, it was a particularly sore thing, I guess, because before I got into med school, I had started this process of trying to control my weight, get my weight down, to be more physically fit, eat more healthily. And in doing so, I'd followed weightlifting diets, and then later on I got into bodybuilding. So I started following bodybuilding diets. And of course, there's lots of supplements involved in those things, and lots of protein.
What was a bodybuilding diet back then like?
Well, it was just basically a very high protein diet, and they recommended lots of supplements. There wasn't nearly as many supplements back then. Back then, the main supplements were protein and different vitamins, minerals, and things like that. They didn't have all the stuff that they have out there now, because before '94, things were very highly regulated. So the supplement companies, if they wanted to come out with a new supplement, they had to go through the same approval process that pharmaceutical companies had to go through. So that kept the numbers down. But in '94, after Congress passed that act, it allowed the supplement companies to virtually make any supplement they wanted without any scrutiny. And so, I mean, there's a little scrutiny, but as long as they use components that are known to be safe for human consumption, and don't advertise that they will diagnose, cure, prevent, or treat any disease, they're pretty much free to do whatever they want. So after '94, the supplements just exploded. But so you kind of read what they're taking, and as time went on, you're making some progress, and you're eating pretty well, and you're taking these supplements, but there was times I could take the supplements and times I couldn't, because supplements are very expensive, and so I couldn't always afford them. But what I started noticing was that the times I could take the supplements and the times that I couldn't take the supplements, I didn't notice any difference. I was making the same kind of weight gains, strength gains, and things like that. So what's going on here? So
it's interesting you saying that, because a lot of people don't understand the quality of supplements determines whether it's going to be effective. And there's very few that have any quality that are out there. That's one caveat with supplements. The other one is it may be good for all kinds of people, but if it doesn't address your specific needs, it's worthless. Yeah. And it's money in the toilet, basically.
So that got me wondering, and you brought up the point there that, okay, I was wondering, am I doing my exercises correctly? Am I doing the right exercises? And am I taking the right supplements? I just had all these questions. And so I started looking into it to figure out, well, what's going on here? Why aren't I noticing a difference? And so I started talking to a lot of people about their supplements and what's going on. And this was a little while before I got into med school. So when I finally got into med school, I'm thinking, okay, this is great because I'm going to get into med school. They're going to teach me all this physiology. They're going to teach me all this nutrition. I'm going to be able to figure out all these supplements and all this, what's going on, what's happening here. But that didn't happen. What they, so after I got into med school, discovered that I wasn't going to get those questions answered, then I just had to do what I could to research it on my own. You kind of alluded to it there a little bit, the quality of the supplements and things like that, but basically what I figured out is that if you eat a very well-balanced diet, you pretty much provide your body with everything it needs. And supplementation, it wasn't worth it because you were already getting what the supplement was providing in your diet. So if you're taking the supplement, you were just adding something that you already had, and wasn't really providing any benefit. So I went along with
this was about what year that you're looking at a more
it was
balanced
probably
diet?
around 2000, where I was really putting all this together, starting to see that, you know, if you're going to supplement, or go ahead.
Because there's so much out there, false information about diets, and the amount of fad diets that kicked in are absolutely insane.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those are lethal. A fair amount of those are extremely unhealthy and dysregulate everything. So back then, what was considered a balanced diet? I'm interested to know.
Okay, so yeah, because I told you I was following these fad diets. You know, first the weightlifters and the bodybuilders and all of this stuff, and then you kind of decide, okay, well, you look at their diets. Like back in the late 70s, I went to a 2-day seminar by Frank Zane, and he's if you're not familiar with bodybuilders, Mr. Olympia is the ultimate competition for bodybuilders. And Frank won the competition 2 years. This was actually before he won the competitions, because that was back when Schwarzenegger was still active, and those guys. And Schwarzenegger took it every year that he was there. But I went to a 2-day seminar, and during those times, we'd go to lunch with him. Well, we would all order some lunch, and he would order some lunch too, but he had this big box of pills. And he's pretty much just eating a lunch comprised of all these pills. And I thought, yeah, this is kind of crazy. You start looking into the healthy diets, and even starting with the government, I guess I kind of looked at the pyramids and stuff first, just to see what they did. And the pyramids were very good because they broke things down into commonality. So you got different food groups. You got cereal grains group, you got vegetables, you got fruits, you got protein groups and dairy and these things. And they break it down very nicely because all the things in those groups have very similar nutritional components. And so the thought that the thing that I thought was most applicable to all of that is, if you're eating from all these food groups, and there's a few entities that, you know, subscribe to eat from all the food groups in balanced proportions, and you'll get the nutrients that you need. So I thought that was very profound, and actually digging into more research and nutrition stuff, that is very, very true. It's very basic, but it's very true. And then digging into all the supplements, you know, what does a supplement provide you that your diet doesn't provide you? And I came to the conclusion that the reason that I wasn't seeing any benefit from the supplements because I was already getting those things in my diet. And then you alluded to the different diets, hundreds of diet plans out there. And basically the diet plan comes about because somebody has an issue, whether it's weight or whatever it is that they're dealing with, and they come up with some way of eating that they think is beneficial for them, and they lose their weight or whatever benefit they're trying to get out of it. They get that result, and then they say, well, this is great. And so they start their own diet plan, and they start promoting it.
And they stick their name on it and all that.
You know,
the thing that's really interesting when you change your filter, instead of looking at somebody's ripped body and go, wow, that's what I want, you look at it through the lens of physiology, and most of the fad diets just fall apart.
Oh, exactly. They do, very much so. But I've spent a pretty extensive amount of time looking into diets. And like the Atkins diet, okay, he takes his high protein diet, throws his name on it, and calls it the Atkins diet. But if you look back historically, there was high protein diets, well, at least 150 years before that. So he didn't do anything new. He just took his idea and run with it and put his name on it. And now it's become, the keto diet. The same thing, and there's other high protein diets that people have ascribed to, but they're
High
named.
protein and high fat, what happens to the pH of the body in a high protein diet?
Well, it doesn't stay normal.
Which way does it go?
It tries to normalize, but you're eating a lot of protein, a lot of more of acidic type.
Right. And
foods.
when you're acidic, what's that do to your mineral balance?
Well, it changes because they're all affected by the pH. So
Yeah, you no longer store them, you pee them out,
yeah,
is what happens. Something that I think is interesting, my wife ran across an article a little while ago. There's no culture that gets osteoporosis that doesn't have dairy as a staple in their diet. It's exactly the opposite of what we're told. And you go on the high protein diet, you're peeing out all your minerals. And you can't function without minerals. So it makes the muscles that you're trying to work not work. You take calcium. A muscle can contract without calcium. It can't relax. So you get all these muscle spasms because you're in a high protein diet because all your calcium's going down the toilet.
Well, and where do you get them? You don't get those things from meat either. Meat
Right.
is probably one of the least nutritional foods that you can eat. You need the protein, or you don't need huge amounts of protein, but it supplies a very good amount of protein. And red meat gives you iron that, excuse me, you have. It's hard to get a lot of iron from other foods and things other than red meat. You don't have to eat red meat to get an adequate amount of iron, but you have to pay attention to what you eat. But the other vitamins, minerals, and things, I look at the diet as fruits and vegetables are your multivitamin. And then
That's good.
cereal grains are a very good balance group because they have vitamins and minerals, a fair amount of carbohydrates and things. So for someone who's working hard, cereal grains are a very important part of their diet because it gives them a lot of energy components, vitamins and minerals. The
As
vegetable,
long as they're not processed, right?
exactly. Fresh
And if you
processed.
add this to your fruits and vegetables, you get the other side of things. It's the colors that you get your antioxidants out of.
Yeah.
So what's the rule of thumb on colors?
Well, there's several ideas on eating the colors. For me, if you balance your diet across, because what I've been trying to get people to do and work with people on is eat a diet that's balanced across the spectrum using a pyramid as a template, and then eating a cross-section of foods in there that are representative of the group of food, not just 2 or 3 items out of a group, but eat as broad a spectrum as you can out of that group.
Yeah, you talked about something a couple of times right there. I'm gonna ask you to clarify. When you talk about carbs, you already brought up cereal grains. What's the difference between unprocessed whole food carbs and processed carbs?
Okay, well, processing is anything that you do to a food item other than just eat it as it is. So things like cereal grains contain chemicals that can be upsetting to your digestive tract. But we don't eat foods from the cereal grains group without processing them somewhat. Like if you're going to have bread, you don't just you grind the flour, or you grind the wheat into flour, you make the bread, but you don't just eat the bread without baking it. Well, baking it deactivates the chemicals that cause the issue with the cereal grains, and so that solves that problem. But virtually the foods, all foods contain some of this chemical, but the cereal grains
Yeah.
group contains a
What I was
lot.
getting at, what I was getting at is most people think carbs is sugar,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's a major inflammatory problem. That's not what you're talking about. You're talking
No.
about whole foods, starches that we absolutely have to survive, not hyperinflammatory sugars.
Yeah. Yeah, that's people don't understand the difference between sugars and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are just simply chains of sugars. You take individual sugar molecules and start hooking them together as a chain, and there's your carbohydrate. And there's all kinds of carbohydrates, all different configurations and combinations and things that are used for structural components or used for different functions in the body, as well as energy component. But it's the raw sugar that causes the problems. Sucrose, glucose, whatever combination high fructose corn syrup, whatever it is that you eat, sugar, raw sugar, that causes the problems. Your body needs the carbohydrates. Your body loves carbohydrates, but it functions on complex carbohydrates. They're chains of carbohydrates that it slowly breaks them down as it digests them and absorbs them, and it does it in a very controlled fashion. If you eat sugar, it's just absorbed very quickly. Your blood sugar shoots up, your insulin shoots up. All kinds of problems arise from that.
Yeah, and there's something with the starches that people aren't really aware of, and that's the fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expound a bit on fiber, how critically important that is for our digestive health?
Well, fiber is fiber itself is a carbohydrate, but it's one that we can't digest. And the carbohydrate kind of the fiber kind of regulates the absorption of the breakdown of the carbohydrates in the digestive tract. So it has a lot more functions than just something you can't digest.
The gut stuff in the gut, the food can't move without the fiber. And it's a fiber that regulates normal bowel habits, which is a foundational part of health. And I think it's important to just throw that one in right there because a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. Well, people on the high protein diets, they don't get very much fiber because there's what they call low residual foods, meaning they have very little fiber in them. And low residual foods are stuff like meat. Eggs are low residual food. Flour. If you take, especially white flour is just like eating candy. But that's a low residual food. And when you eat those things, there's no fiber left in your bowel to work on the bulk of the stool and keep it soft. So people on the Atkins diet, stuff like that, I mean, they can form bricks in their bowel. And one of the constipations, one of the problems with the Atkins diet. Well, it's because they don't have any fiber in their diet. But the fiber is undigestible, and it forms a basis in the bowel that keep things moving. It won't let your body absorb all the components out of your food and leave just solid components that form into a brick. So there's that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and the gut flora, it ferments the fiber, and that's its food, and that gives us nutrients. You know, they're just a bunch to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why you don't have to know all the details of
You just
what
mix the
happens
food right.
if you eat a well-balanced diet, because that's going to provide everything your body needs in a nice balanced form and let it function at its level of ability to function. It's vitally important to eat a balanced diet so you get all the vitamins and minerals and fiber and all these different things that you need for your body to
So,
function optimally.
what happened to your weight personally once you started doing a balanced diet like what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have to worry about my weight too much because I was pretty heavy. I wasn't extremely overweight, but I was, 30, 40 pounds overweight to start off with. And as I started eating better and exercising, I wasn't really trying to lose weight because I didn't starve myself or go into any weird diet. I just tried to eat kind of the same food groups that these guys did and kind of eat like they did. So I didn't really pay a lot of attention to calories. But as I started eating better, I started losing weight immediately. And as I continued that, the only time I really have a weight problem is if I let my diet go. Thanksgiving comes around and you start eating a bunch of food and then you don't stop and you just continue that.
Looking at your picture, you look pretty lean. How tall are you?
I'm about 5'10".
And what do you weigh right now?
I weigh about 195 right now.
Okay. And you're still doing a lot of weights?
I have been. I have had some shoulder issues here recently and stuff that has kept me from pursuing it. But as long as I don't have an injury like my shoulder, I hit it pretty hard. I exercise 4 days a week. I hit it for about an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time, and I work pretty hard at it.
Do you feel like you're pretty well fit right now?
Well, right now I'm not as fit as I could be because it's been a couple of months since I injured my shoulder, and shoulder's involved in everything. So not as fit as I could be, but yeah, I'm pretty fit. I think for somebody my age especially, even not being as fit as I normally am, I'm still a lot more fit than most people are.
What's the general ballpark of your age right now?
Of what? Of my age?
What ballpark of age? You don't have to say exactly, just...
Oh, that's fine. I'm not concerned about that. I'm 72.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, myself, I've never been a gym rat. I just work outside all the time, done construction my whole life, and I've just got 100 hats. It sounds impossible if you hear what I do.
Yeah, no way.
I injured an ankle about a year ago, and I'm probably 80% in my walking and all that. When I'm active, I still weigh the same weight that I weighed when I was in high school. It's pretty amazing. We're the same height.
Yeah.
And, I'm like 25 pounds less than you when I'm active, and 20 when I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're both eating very much the same way. I've got a very, very whole food diet, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah. No, that's diet is where your nutrition is, where your health is.
Yeah, you got a book where you talk about this stuff. What's the name of that book, and how do people get a hold of that?
The book is Lies Exposed. I got the idea for the book after I started discovering that I wasn't getting the benefits out of the supplements that I was expecting and so forth. I started really digging into that, figuring that all out. And I figured out that if you're eating a really well-balanced, healthy diet, the supplements didn't do anything for you. So then I thought, well, and a lot of the supplements, you talked about the diets, some of the diets as being totally garbage, and they are. People come up with their own spin on things, and you talk about high protein, high fat diets, and they're missing all the nutritional components out of their diets and things like that.
Yeah. So where do people find that book?
You can find the book on Barnes & Noble or Amazon.
Okay. And that's Lies Exposed is the name of that?
Lies Exposed. I put Lies Exposed. I just want to know the truth about dieting, supplements, weight loss, and exercise.
That sounds good. That's pretty amazing. All right, well, I'm going to put a link in that. Let's sign off. We're a little over time right now. So I'm going to hit the stop on this.
Okay.